I hope everything's going real good where you are. Things are good here. Um, can't help but think as I read up on Russian and Ukrainian history and recent policy in Crimea and Georgia, all these things, and listen to the pundits and the tubers, independent journalists, mainstream journalists. Read a book. We live in a world that's still very volatile, and the players, as long as they're playing the great game, um, are always going to find advantages when it comes to war and pandemics and emergencies and disasters. Not that that's their ultimate, desire personally, but the name of the game is to get ahead, to beat your rival, to become wealthier, to gain more power and influence, and to control the narrative, to control the story. So sometimes throughout history, that's been very brutal. And when the Muslims in the Middle Ages were running through everywhere, converting people, or during the Crusades, or 30 Years' War, or whatever you want to point to, when freedom and democracy goes to Vietnam and Central America. It can be very brutal when you try to liberate countries from dictators in Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan. When you fight terror and fight drugs, some people are going to make out like bandits, some players, but people just get left behind. I don't know how we're ever going to get to a world where normal people can really decide their fate in some kind of democratic way. Maybe not in our lifetimes, maybe never, because the heat engine we call civilization now will probably self-terminate with, the destruction of habitat due to climate change. Or if we're unlucky this time, it could be a nuclear exchange, which means nuclear winter, which means we lose our food and starve to death anyway. But we don't want to worry too much about that. What we want to do is hove to, cling to, stick to our narratives, what I've always called programming. And these days, the programming changes every time your screen refreshes on your device. The kids, I feel so sorry for the young people because they constantly have to update their programming to stay hip and relevant and cool, whatever words they use for it now, gender fluid or whatever. It's always changing so fast. Hand-waving freak-outery blogger, he's great, BJ, on that kind of stuff. But I was thinking, what are the odds that we have another 2440 or fight or a 39th parallel or East-West Berlin, Iron Curtain kind of thing? What if they draw a line eventually? The empire of the United States in the West and the wannabe reshaped, reformed empire of Russia. And they say, okay, we're going to stay over here in the East and you guys can be over there in the West, and we'll just kill each other if we cross this line. So the line gets pushed a little bit further towards Slovenia and Romania and Poland and, these so-called Eastern European countries. It's hard to define anymore. And then we kind of go back into that mode of thinking. Meanwhile, we're turning up the thermostat on the heat engine like crazy. People are jockeying for position in the energy business like no one's business. And as all this happens, unfortunate people get killed. And the empire, the players, the great gamers, they never ask the people what they want. The journalists don't, the pundits don't, the politicians don't. Not really. It's all about what the players want. So Putin doesn't care if Ukraine wants to be European. He doesn't care if Russian people want to be more European. He has a vision and he's the player, and he's going to make people buy that story, and they're going to be programmed by that. It's not the people's fault. I don't know why people want to be what they want to be. It's probably just because they believe in the story. That's why I like that book, The Story Paradox. It kind of lays it all out there. Anyway, are we going to have like an East and West Ukraine now? And we're going to have to sit around and wait for that to happen while we're putting out fires at melting down nuclear power plants, power stations. I don't know how we're going to program people to be wiser and better thinkers and critical thinkers and rational and, hoping for an open society where things change based on evidence and discovery and discussion and cooperation and collaboration and love and friendship and consideration. It's hard to imagine at the scale of this big game that ever happens. It might happen in your neighborhood with your family and friends or in your business or whatever, but hard to imagine our culture war ever ending, whether it's woke or not woke, whatever is next, because the culture wars kind of define the whole world as it is now. We don't have 200 or 300 years of people believing one story, or 1,000 years of people dealing with an empire like the Roman Empire, or the Persian Empire, or the Ottoman Empire, or whatever. We've got this high-tech thing, juggernaut, powered by these tools we're using right now that shift the story all the time. We're getting updated. We're getting program updates all the time. It's hard to find out where you fit in. And if you can figure out how to run the rage machine, you can make a goddamn good living at it. Stubbornly adhering to one of the little stories. It's a damn shame. How long is this going to go on? The end is nearer than you think, maybe, or maybe not. But anyway, I hope things are really good where you are, and I hope you can keep them that way. Be careful of this narrative machine that keeps programming you every time the screen refreshes. Read some good books. Triangulate your experience with the interwebs and all the information so that you can somehow come to grips with it and have a nice weekend. Bouillon tea out.